Hello, this is Matt on the Moon Lambo channel. In a video just the other day, I covered a couple quotes from Ripple Senior Vice President Ashish Birla, who has been with Ripple since the very early days. I mean, it may have actually been 2012, and if not, just very, very early on. He's a wealth of knowledge. He has a great vision for how things may perhaps pan out, and he's politely opinionated, I would say, about what he thinks on various things, XRP, crypto, otherwise, blockchain, everything. And so again, there's this piece, and I cited a couple things from it, but there's so much more information in this. I knew I'd want to take time to actually run through this entire interview with the Ashish Birla. And so I'm going to do that in this video. Another thing I'm going to cover is the interview between Anthony Pompliano and Brad Garlinghouse. Have you heard about this? So, Bitcoin maximalist Anthony Pompliano, very popular guy. I think he's got somewhere in the neighborhood of 300,000 followers on Twitter. He's got a very popular podcast called Off the Chain, which is very clever. What a play on words. And so he recently said that he's confounded by XRP. He says nice things about Ripple. He's not trashing, by the way, he doesn't trash other projects, but he said that he's confounded by XRP and just essentially doesn't understand why it's needed. And so he posed to the community at large in the Twitter sphere, should I interview Ripple CEO Brad Garlinghouse? There was an overwhelming response. Yes, almost everybody. And so he announced earlier today he was about to go into recording, and then when he finished recording the interview today with Brad Garlinghouse, he tweeted something out. So I'm going to share with you his immediate thoughts after the interview, what he had to say, and I'm also going to share with you some comments from the XRP community via Twitter, what they had to say both before and after the interview. The last thing I'm going to cover here is a piece from AMB Crypto, unrelated, I just found fascinating, titled, U.S. House Committee asks Facebook's Mark Zuckerberg to appear before it by January. Now, before we get rocking and rolling here, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, if you would please delicately tap that like button, and if you're happy and you know it, go ahead and subscribe to the Moon Lambo channel. Or if you're happy and you know it, you can just clap your hands. If you don't want awesome XRP news every day, that's not going to help you get the XRP news. I think it would be wise to subscribe. Just my 2 cents on it. So here's the piece titled Q&A with Ripple Internet, Internet of Value, Crypto Exchanges, and Decentralization. And it begins, since its founding in 2012, global payment company Ripple has forged a position in the Internet of Value by developing a blockchain network designed to facilitate global enterprise payments. The network can utilize cryptocurrencies, such as XRP, to give banks and payment providers a sure and instant option to source liquidity for cross-border payments. The blockchain network, called RippleNet, enables these banks and payment providers to transact enterprise payments with higher speeds, lower fees, and increased security than traditional systems. Ripple SVP of Product Ashish Birla stopped by the Atrium office for a fireside chat with Atrium engineer Avi Mundra on the origins of Ripple, the progress of crypto exchanges, and where it's all headed in the coming years. Doesn't that sound pleasant? Fireside chat. You can just cozy up with a nice warm blanket and pour yourself a glass of wine or maybe some Cavassier. So here's the first question. 6 years ago, crypto was barely on the map. No one really knew what it was or where it was going. Tell us a little about Ripple's origin story and what drew you in to join the team at the time. And so here's Ashish's answer. I'm going to date myself a bit here, but when I graduated college from the University of Michigan, we were just starting to get email. I also grew up in Michigan, where it was all about manufacturing and the auto industry. But I was watching this interesting evolution happen where we were starting to connect everyone around the world with the internet. Most of my friends at the time were moving to New York or Chicago to start their careers, and I decided to go out to Silicon Valley and launch my career on top of a trend. That trend being the internet. After a few years, I was in between jobs, my company sold to Intel, and I thought, that's just not what I want to do. I was looking for what was next and got interested in Bitcoin. At the time, though, Bitcoin was a bit underground, associated with the Silk Road and that sort of thing. I actually went to the first Bitcoin conference in Amsterdam, and it was an interesting crowd. After that, I was debating whether I should get involved with this wacky tech no one knows much about yet, but seems interesting, or if I should go into social commerce, which was starting to really take off at the time. I actually asked Avi about this at the time, and he said to me, do you want to sell t-shirts online, or do you want to change the world? And I just thought, this guy's right. Who doesn't want to change the world? I thought for sure he was going to say t-shirts. Are you with me? I completely thought he was going to say t-shirts. Anyway, what a curveball. I ended up joining Ripple when we were about 6 people and were just getting started, just a few blocks from here. There were only 4 crypto exchanges at the time, with the largest one being Mt. Gox. And the total daily volume was maybe $700,000. Mind you, at this point, as I'm reading this, the typical daily volume, and I didn't check today, but for XRP, according, if you just go to like Live Coin Watch, it's typically on regular days about 1 billion. So right here, you're talking about 700,000 total. So less than 1 million. It's just, yeah, so we've come a long way. I still insist we're in the early days, but still. And then Ashish continues, fast forward to now, there are over 350 exchanges around the world, 10 in the US alone, and the total trading volume is 30 billion per day. I think I've been a part of this emergence on the next internet, but for value, and it's been really interesting to watch this progression. And here's the next question. That's a great backstory. Let's talk about what Ripple does and what you are working on. And he says, cryptocurrencies are digital assets. You can think of a cryptocurrency as an engine. We realized early on that an engine is useless unless you build everything else you need to go around it for payments. The tires, the frame, seatbelts, even the roads. We picked our focus to be global payments. On top of using a cryptocurrency, we needed to figure out how people were going to get on and off the network. How were people going to access it? How was it going to integrate with the real world? Again, think back to 2013, there wasn't anything like smart contracts. Many folks in the crypto community were heavily against working with financial institutions, but our purview was always that we need to work with the system to improve it. See, again, there you go, adults being adults. Even back in 2013, they didn't just decide they needed to grow up several years later. They've always been the leaders on this stuff. But anyway, then Ashish continues here. Our customers from the beginning have been financial institutions, fintechs, mobile wallets, banks. We started signing on those partners to help facilitate global money transfer and partnered with a lot of crypto exchanges around the world. By the way, I've talked about on the channel in the past, not in some time, just the concept of if you're Ripple, and given that what you're doing is so utterly transformative and your vision so audacious, what it was like to just get that first customer, not even using XRapid, not even close to anybody considering using XRP for anything, but just to get that first customer in competition with Swift specifically. Now, talk about daunting, yet they did indeed pull it off, and then they got their first XRapid customer, and there they go. And so now it's at a point where they just, to me, it seems like they're just unstoppable. Nobody else is even close to trying to do what they're doing the way that Ripple's doing it. That's my personal opinion, anyway. And then here's the next question. What has the progression of cryptocurrencies looked like in this time? He says, it's funny how far this ecosystem has come. In 2014, I became really interested in this crypto exchange in Mexico called Bitso, and I thought we should go down and visit them. We ended up going down to visit them in Mexico that year, and the address was to be someone's house. We got there, and it wasn't even our contact's house. It was his mom's. Well, they now do about $1 billion in trading volume per month. That is astonishing. By the way, I had never heard that story anywhere else. This is cool stuff. And then as she continues, but what was interesting about Bitso is, for the first time ever, you can have 4 people anywhere in the world connect to a global ecosystem and send money across borders. Before Bitcoin and XRP, if you wanted to do cross-border payments, you had to be Citibank or HSBC or JP Morgan. And I thought, whoa, this is the start of something really interesting, where 4 guys in a basement can now send money on the same playing field as these huge banking giants. Those 3 companies are somewhat of an oligopoly, as they control 80% of global money movement around the world. But now a small tech shop in Mexico is able to send global payments through his technology. It's truly revolutionary. Today, the largest crypto exchange in Asia has reported higher profits and more retail users than Deutsche Bank. This is the fabric of the new financial world and this new payment ecosystem. In the case of Ripple, it's a combination of working with established players, but also these new players like crypto exchanges, and bringing them together with our technology to facilitate cross-border payments. And of course, an amazing story. It's absolutely an amazing story. So Bitso, that is indeed the Mexico-based exchange that ultimately became partnered with Ripple, and is today using XRapid, which of course uses XRP as a bridge currency. So think about that, from Ma's basement to being partnered with Ripple, moving money around the world. Insane. All right, next question. So that's where we are today. What are some developing trends you're seeing in terms of where crypto and blockchain are headed in the future? And part of what's covered in here I had talked about in a previous video, but really not much of it at all. And he talks a little bit about scaling here. But anyway, so his answer is, there was an interesting phase around 2013 where everyone was creating a token. Today you have Bitcoin as the largest by market cap, Ethereum as the second largest, and XRP as the third largest token. But in 2017, the ICO craze came along where everybody was raising money using tokens. That has now been outlawed in the US because it was violating securities laws. What happened was the SEC started going after any company that did an ICO in the US, the exchanges that listed ICOs, and any investor that invested in an ICO that was in the United States also got a subpoena. It just killed the ICO market. Despite that, I believe that securities law is very much a good thing for digital assets. You're not going to scale this industry unless you have the proper regulation. The stats are astonishing with ICOs. 80-something% of them have lost value. 40% were fraudsters, meaning the money's just gone. People just raised money and took off with it. We need SEC law. It's there to protect consumers buying and selling equity in these companies. While many ICOs were definitely illegal, that doesn't mean the people behind the largest concept weren't onto something. Now we're in this phase of tokenization where people are taking assets that are really illiquid and making them liquid, meaning very tradable. This has applications across many different areas. One use case that comes to mind is tokenizing real estate, which is typically very cumbersome to buy or raise money for. And if you can make something tokenized and liquid, you can then think about derivative products on top of that. Another example is trading secondary stock of a company, which is quite complicated today. There are two main platforms in the US, Shares Post and Equities In. Otherwise, you're just doing OTC trading, which means you have to find a broker to go and sell shares. But this concept, the tokenization of illiquid assets, is something that I'm bullish on. And then you can factor in smart contracts, which is a programming layer on top of it to all govern the asset trading. Now, by the way, I have never personally read or heard Ashish state that prior to this, the idea of the tokenization of illiquid assets, this and that. And I've been saying forever on this channel that we are heading towards an ever increasingly liquid world where it's easy to get in and out of assets. It's going to be completely game changing. It's going to change the way in which people treat things that they own, the way in which money moves around the world, and trading in general. So it just, to me, reading this from him, it just kind of reaffirms that I was right on track in believing that's the way in which things are going. Anyway, then he continues here. A good example for all of us here in the Valley is company equity. Smart contracts would govern our ownership of company equity for everything like vesting and so forth. If we had that in place now, it would free up our legal teams from dealing with stock transfers and let them focus on helping our product teams get into new markets. That's what we'll see in the future. The founder of Ethereum, Vitalik Buterin, also the editor at Bitcoin Magazine and working with us at Ripple around 2014 to 2015, was talking about this concept of smart contracts before anyone else really. What was interesting about Vitalik's vision is that normally one entity or one corporation is running code or an application, and with this concept of a smart contract application, no single corporation or entity is running it. Instead, hundreds or thousands of nodes around the world are running that application. This enables code to become decentralized. I think this is interesting because it allows new kinds of financial products to be built on top of cryptocurrencies. Think about loans, tokenization of real estate, etc. Essentially, all of these products are possible without a big bank. This is a bit farther out, but this is the next trend we're thinking about. What are some things that can be built on top of what Wall Street owned in the past and now can be decentralized code? That's an awesome piece, isn't it? I got some stuff out of there that I was just completely unaware of, and I hope you did too. That was, I don't know, to me it's enlightening and interesting at the same time. Everything is that, so I hope that you agree it was worth running through that. And this was from just within the last couple of days or so. This was released, so new stuff here. All right, next here, actually I meant to have this tab over. Let me go and scroll this over. If you're watching XRP Crypto Wolf, yes, you are going to get a shout out in this video. All right. So here's the tweet from Anthony Pompliano, and this is before he interviewed Brad Garlinghouse today. And he wrote, "I will be sitting down with Brad Garlinghouse in 3 hours for an unfiltered conversation. He has promised to answer any questions you may have. Last call. What are your most burning questions about Ripple or XRP?" And so we had a Bulldog Brewer here chime in and wrote, "What's the future price potential of XRP? He likely will never answer this question, but I don't for 1 second believe that they are plowing all this effort and resources into pushing XRP out to the masses/industries without some idea of what the price potential range is." It's a fair question to have. To me, I don't think anybody knows. I don't think anybody really knows exactly what this is going to look like in terms of price. If you're super bullish, you can make all sorts of 3-digit or 4-digit XRP price predictions, but the reality of this all is we just don't know. We all just seem to have the sense, especially us in the XRP community, we just have the sense that given how early we are and how little of the world has adopted it, but also how fundamentally useful XRP is, it should be worth a lot more. It's just hard to put a price on. Fellow YouTube XRP YouTuber Digital Asset Investor wrote, "Does he believe XRP will make Bitcoin an altcoin?" And then Mr. B responded, "Shots fired," with a little animated gun gif here, which I got a kick out of. I don't think he does believe that, but I do. And then here, Mr. B also wrote this, and I like this. He wrote, "Someone should be interviewing Pomp right after the interview on how he views the future of XRP." So that's cool. Alex Cobb, fellow XRP YouTuber, wrote, "Will we see dozens of banks use XRP in 2019 like he predicted?" Which is certainly a fair question there. And then after the interview, check this out. This is just from the last, couple hours or so. He tweeted out, "Just finished the interview with Brad Garlinghouse. He did everything he agreed to. Recorded for 90 minutes, answered hard questions, shared vision for Ripple, and responded to detractors." And then he writes, "Podcast will drop Tuesday for paying subscribers and Wednesday for everyone." So there you go. Alex Cobb responded here, and I guess he's pretty open about his intent here. Alex Cobb wrote, "I'll subscribe for just 1 month to get it early." And then he wrote, "Pomp, how do I subscribe for just 1 month? I don't see an option to not do a recurring subscription." Which, yeah, that's kind of commonplace with subscription sites, though. You probably will have to actually just cancel if you want to. That's my guess, but to this point, Pomp hasn't responded. Mr. BXRP wrote, "Can't wait to hear it. Are you still confounded, or can you comfortably say you understand how and why XRP is more advantageous to the user in Ripple payment flows? Will you be buying any XRP or adding to your original stacks based on the interview?" I just... the next person, who's it? 20BB, he already owns 200,000 XRP, well-known fact for select few. Yeah, I've never seen that. I'd like to see some data if that's true. He's a Bitcoin maximalist, and I've heard him state that Bitcoin is the only cryptocurrency that he owns. So if there's data to the contrary, I'm interested in that. But to the best of my recollection, not quite the case. And then somebody named Jeremiah XRP wrote, "Was the reason not to go live for editing purposes only?" And then Pomp responded, "I agreed not to stream it live based on Ripple's request, but the conversation will be presented in full. We aren't going to cut it open or remove any sentences, words, etc." Which is awesome. I want the whole thing. I love long format conversations. I don't want anything edited whatsoever, so I'm very glad that's what they're doing. Though I am just curious as to why Ripple would not want that to be live streamed, but who knows? I'm sure they've got some sort of reason that I just can't think of off the top of my head. But if it's going to be in full content, the full content not chopped up, I don't know that it really matters a whole lot. But again, maybe they're thinking of something other angle that I'm not, so who knows. All right, next, here's your shout-out, XRP Crypto Wolf. Sorry, I had that tab out of order. I usually like to go left to right anyway. I prep my videos. I kid you not. I do spend typically, it could be 30 or 60 minutes each morning putting this all together. And then I actually did the first thing in the morning today. I didn't get a chance to record until this afternoon, but, life is life. But, anyway, so I usually try to have it in the right order. But not perfect. So anyway, this piece, it's about good old Zuckerberg and Facebook here. U.S. House Committee asked Facebook's Mark Zuckerberg to appear before it in January. Facebook's crypto project Libra has been battling it out with regulators from around the world, with the ones in the United States being especially vocal about their concerns. In a series of new developments, the U.S. House Committee has demanded that the chief executive officer of the social media giant, Mark Zuckerberg, appear before the panel January, according to reports. The House of Representatives Financial Services Committee is seeking the testimony of Facebook's chief operating officer, Sheryl Sandberg, on October 29. However, this meeting has been put on hold until Zuckerberg commits to appear. Facebook has been in troubled waters ever since it announced its own cryptocurrency in June. Concerned about the impact of Libra, financial watchdogs all over the world have been talking about the possible impact of Facebook's stablecoin on the global financial system, with some countries such as France and Germany going as far as deliberating a ban on the project. The chairwoman of the House Financial Services Committee, Maxine Waters, said during a hearing in July, quote, Facebook's plans to raise serious privacy, trading, national security, and monetary policy concerns, not only for Facebook's over 2 billion users who will have immediate access to these products, but also for consumers, investors, and the global economy. And by the way, Maxine Waters, who I just quoted there, she's the one that has now famously, at least within the world of cryptocurrencies, famously called Bitcoin Bitcom, Bitcom. So I don't think she's particularly well versed on those things of which she has opinions. Oh, humans. The chairwoman had ordered Facebook to put on hold the implementation of Libra until regulators and Congress have deliberated on the legal framework around it, something David Marcus, head of Libra, had diligently accepted. And here's a quote from him. Facebook will not offer the Libra digital currency until we have fully addressed regulatory concerns and received appropriate approvals. Super duper, but maybe should have done that before you announced you were just going to go do it in the first place. But that's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate all the support. I am not a financial advisor. Do not buy or sell anything because of anything that I say or write. That would be a very, very, very bad idea. Until next time, to the moon, Lambo!